Howdy, howdy. We are live on another Friday night for the wonderful, delightful live Tex-Trek show, which is going to break new ground tonight with a special song I'm going to sing for everyone. So I'm sure people are looking forward to that.
Father, we
Uh,
can drop out the old guitar intro to the thing and just dub in your track.
no, we got time for two different songs. I think we'll open on our
Oh, it could
classic
be an outro then, just
rockabilly
as
team.
as long as
Yeah,
it
yeah,
sticks
let's do that.
around.
But yes, yes. So the big event is finally here. But we do have one final episode of Star Trek Prodigy season one final new Star Trek episode of 2022 to talk about before we end the year. So let's go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Aaron.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 223rd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek old and new. And tonight we are talking about the Star Trek Prodigy Season 1 finale, Supernova Part 2, written by series creators Kevin and Dan Hageman, right? Yeah, Hageman, and directed by Ben Hibon or whatever the French way to say that is. I don't have Trek on the Tube here to correct me, but yeah, he's like the producing director of the show. He's like the head honcho of all the directors on Prodigy. So the big dogs themselves coming in to write and direct the season finale. And boy, did they deliver. The reaction to this has just been incredible online. I just see so much love for this episode, and I don't know what my fellow people on the show today are gonna say, but I suspect there's gonna be a lot of positivity. But
It's interesting, Father. I hadn't because I was kind of trying to avoid spoilers and stuff.
sure,
I have not been going into Trek circles, so I didn't know. I mean, I was kind of guessing it would be well received, but that's interesting and cool to hear. It is very well received.
Yes, actually, the most I've ever seen Prodigy talked about, which makes sense, finale.
Yeah.
But I also saw today, I mean, I take everything on Twitter with a grain of salt because it seems like they can barely keep their website functional. It was like it not working a couple days ago. But I saw Star Trek was trending on Twitter today. And it's like, well, this is, there wasn't much news. They showed a Picard season 3 clip. But yeah, it must be because of Prodigy. So
yeah,
that was very cool to see. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about this. Before we get into it, though, real quick, I have to give a big thank you and shout out to all of our patrons out there who have. This is the first year that we had a Patreon for Tex-Trek, and I didn't know if people in our audience were gonna, want to be able to support. And I am so thrilled and so grateful for the people who did show up. That's Starfleet Boy, Kick is Eternal, Gay Clevin Lundstrom, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, Quarks Bar, John Dawes, Sci-Fi Haven, Geek Filter, aka Aaron Harvey, our own Aaron Harvey, and our anonymous supporters. Thank each and every one of you so much. You really made it a great year for us, and we're hoping that you will stay on board in 2023. And if you don't know about our Patreon, we do there's a few different perks depending on what tier you come in at, but you can come in as little as $2 a month, and whatever tier you choose, you will be invited to our monthly watch parties on January 14th. That's in a couple of weeks. We're going to do our first watch party of 2023. Dave, do you remember what episode we're watching?
You did this last week. Why you want to put me on the spot? Knowing my bad memory, I don't know what the second Moriarty episode is called. It's
Ship in
not
a bottle.
Elementary Dear Data. What is it?
Ship in a Bottle is the second one.
Ship in a Bottle.
It's called the second Moriarty episode.
That's what I was gonna say. Yes,
I think
that's as good as it gets.
In fairness to Dave, I think I was the only one who remembered it the first time it got dropped.
That's true. Yeah, Rachel was the only one. Well, you were faster.
Father's trying to humiliate me by proxy based on his retroactive humiliation at Rachel's hands.
You know what's funny is it does kind of tie into this episode because they both involve like trying to put a sentient hologram onto a some type of mobile storage device. So,
yeah, arguably one with more success than the other.
Yeah. Well, one was a little haphazard, and one was on the flagship of the Federation with all the time in the world. So, but that being said, we're going to be doing that January 14th. Should be a lot of fun. We're wanting to get ready for Moriarty's return on Star Trek Picard season 3, which is only 7 weeks away from day of recording. So we're counting down the days of that. So yeah, it'll be here soon. And also on that note, we will have 6 weeks of no new Star Trek. I know, like, the shame. I can't believe that those bastards at Paramount Plus would do this to us.
But, I'm going to sleep a lot.
Yeah, that's good. Someone's going to get a lot of sleep, but there's no rest for the wicked. Me and Dave will still be on the show every week. It'll just be the two of us, but we'll be talking about Deep Space Nine. We're picking up where we left off. We've covered the first 5 seasons. Go back and listen to that. That was a lot of fun. Dave's watching the show for the first time. I'm watching it for the 47th time. So we compare notes from 2 very different perspectives. But we're getting into season 6 now. So the Dominion War has begun. Gul Dukat has taken over the station and thrown down the gauntlet. And so, yeah, we're going to be discussing what happens next on that show, which is, to me, I think season 6 of DS9, that's the best Star Trek ever. Probably helps that I was a young person watching it for the first time when it originally aired, and it left a huge impression. But today when I go back and rewatch that, it's not just my favorite Star Trek, just like my favorite television storytelling, whatever. I love it so much. So I think that's
I'm pretty sure you don't have to justify DS9's final seasons with nostalgia. I get that's why
you only like it because it's nostalgic.
Yeah, otherwise it's kind of kiddie.
Yeah.
Well,
very 90s.
I remember going to Star Trek conventions and talking to older Star Trek fans, and they're like, wow, really? Like Deep Space? You like Deep Space Nine more than Next Generation or the original series? What the hell is wrong with you? But it just took
so
everyone
dark.
else a while to catch
up. I love
up.
that. It was like, now compared to like if you watch stuff now, it's just like
I know it's because I had watched some Deep Space. The first time I sat down and watched all of Deep Space Nine with the purpose of like that's what I'm doing, I was in college, and then I was like, wait. Everyone was telling me this one was not as good. They were lying to me. Like, this is great.
It is like, I guess it's Trek's first big departure from sort of its classic format, and that threw a lot of people for a loop. And I think there was a lot of probably unfair belief that it was, dark for darkness is sick or whatever. I'm like, did you see the writing in this? That's not what they were doing.
Yeah, it's also like it's still very goofy at times. I think what it is I think it probably binges better than it did than when you would if you missed an episode of Deep Space Nine, it would probably be very confusing.
Yeah. The first time that they had that kind of level of meta plot going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the Prodigy, finale, it's like we're essentially hitting the DS9 finale over the next few weeks. It's a little bit more spread out, but we're still covering it at a pretty concise period of time. So we're going to be hitting the high highs.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. So please stick with us every week. I think folks out there will enjoy that as well. But yes, we do have this episode of Prodigy to talk about. So with all that introduction stuff out of the way, let's get into this. I'm going to quickly recap it by reading the official synopsis, and then I'll kind of expand on it with spoilers. The official synopsis for Supernova Part 2 reads, as the Federation hangs in the balance, the crew must make the ultimate sacrifice to save Starfleet's future, which tells you nothing about the episode. Sorry about that. But yes, so in this episode, we have the tragic death, which I predicted, of hologram Janeway, the heartbreaking demise of the protostar, but they did in turn save the Starfleet ships that were under the influence of the living construct, and they make their way to Earth, and they are accepted not into the Academy, but on board Janeway's mystery ship, this new ship. We got some clues if you are eagle-eyed what this new ship might be. We'll talk about that later, but yeah, so they are going to be part of her crew, being trained by her, and Gwen is going to go off and hopefully have a peaceful first contact with her people. So,
and the Protostar is moving forward as a ship model. So although the prototype is gone, the model is not.
Yeah, so we can hopefully mass produce that really cool ship. It's grown on me a lot. I like the Protostar. I think I've gone on record, if I could have any Starfleet ship as like my own personal ship to own, I think I'd pick the Protostar, because it's like small enough, it'd be easy to find parking for it. You know, you can land it on planets, and if you wanted to be on a different ship, you can just go into the holodeck and, you know, recreate whatever ship you want to serve on instead. So
I mean, I guess arguably you could do that on any holodeck, Fathery.
Well, not every ship has a holodeck.
That's true.
It was one of the first ships that I thought just like it clicked right away. It didn't have to grow on me, basically.
Yeah, I think they really knew what they were doing. I'm sure they went through a lot of designs getting to where they did, but they seem to be particularly cognizant of making sure all angles look good, all that stuff.
Well, the animators have done a terrific job overall on the show. I think that's a universal point that we all agree on, is that everything always looks good on Prodigy.
You know, Father, I'd agree.
Definitely.
I don't know where I saw this though, but I saw someone. I did see. I guess a few comments. Maybe this was during the part 1 of Supernova, and there were a lot of people were talking about it, and somebody was like, "Oh, maybe I'll give it a try." They were saying the animation was their sticking point, and they're like, "Oh, it looks so 2008 or whatever." And I was, I don't know. I mean, I don't see.
It looks so 2008.
Or yeah, they were just basically saying it like it looked like they thought it looked like animation of the 2000s.
I don't know. Was a child in 2008. That's not what kids show animation looked like.
Yeah, well, find me a weekly show on cable TV like Nickelodeon in 2008. That I think that was when Clone Wars started. That
Even
was
the Clone Wars didn't look that. Yeah,
No.
Go watch season 1 of Clone Wars and put this up to that. That was like Lucasfilm.
In their head, I think they decided it looked like season 1 of Clone Wars, but I think you are closer to being correct, Father. I think we can pretty universally accept this is a pretty gorgeous and well-directed show. The animators very much know what they're doing.
I mean, I think there's definitely, it has like a very pretty distinct animation style, but that's not bad. Like, it's like
no, that's actually a good thing, I think.
It's those Jimmy. Oh my God, Jimmy Neutron. The animation. Go back and look at Jimmy Neutron. It looks
that's what PJ says in the comments. It's no Jimmy.
I don't really know what Jimmy Neutron is, but I know it's not Prodigy.
Smaller budget CG movie.
Yeah, there was a show. Eventually.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was a child when this was out, so like.
It's almost as good as TAS.
It was like weird because it was a show, but originally it was like a thing that aired during the commercial breaks on Nickelodeon.
Oh, a little interstitial.
So you would just be like forced to watch like these little shorts, like between like where you were actually trying to watch.
But it became a show. Wasn't it a half-hour show?
Yeah, I think it did eventually become a show. I guess I was never the biggest Jimmy Neutron fan. Someone must have liked it. It became a show.
Well, you know, Ernest P. Worrell started off as a commercial character, and then he had a series of successful movies that some are better than others. But...
Ted Lasso started off as an ESPN commercial, so
yeah. So there you go.
Says the idea for Jimmy Neutron was first created in the 1980s. So
wow, that's
Runaway Rocket Boy. That's what it was called.
Well, I like things from the 80s, so maybe I'll like that.
That's funny.
But as far as this Prodigy finale goes, I'm just gonna throw it out on the table. Whoever wants to give the first opening statement, first person to say something.
All right, I'm in.
Okay, Dave. We'll just start with Dave, and then we'll go clockwise. So Dave, what was your broad impressions of Supernova Part 2?
So I've watched it twice now. I watched it. I guess for the first time last night, and had my I didn't take any notes or anything. I just had my emotional reaction to it. I was pretty blown away. Then I watched it a second time today. Took some notes. Still had a very emotional reaction. So I feel like those bastards did it. They I'm always worried when something I like is nearing its finale or the end of a run. If it's like a comic book run, it's been going a few years. I'm like, are they going to drop the ball? Is it possible that all this good energy I've built up could get lost? And I get a little nerve wracked, and they came through. That's arguably, I think, one of the strongest Trek finales there is. Uh, and that's just their first season, which is wild. I don't even know what to make of that. And they threw a lot of surprises at me in the process. So, I was certain that they were going to be going to time travel for this, and that was not how they got out. Arguably, they almost went more of a TNG route. This was a kind of a Geordi and Data solution that they pulled off, but with a high, the kind of the cost that you see in a finale sometimes. But yeah, many moments throughout that really got to me. I thought, gosh, I'm gonna always blank on her name. Who does the score, Fathery?
Nami Malamud, I think.
Okay, or yeah, Malamud, or yeah. She I thought was like really firing as on all cylinders as she's ever been in this series throughout this episode. I liked that. One of the things I liked best about it was actually that the sort of central plot resolved kind of about halfway through the episode, and there was a lot of breathing room in the end for us to see, kind of, feel the feels of the sad stuff, to feel the hopefulness of what's to come, and the excitement of what they tease for season 2. Every once in a while, Discovery, I thought when they would do their outros, they actually kind of overstayed their welcome. I'd be like, oh wow, that was like 15 minutes of outros there, and like it didn't quite feel right.
The Return of the King effect.
Yes, yes. But as a season finale, and in it's a much shorter show. Of course, things don't get quite as much time to breathe in general on Prodigy. I thought it was very well earned. So to me, almost entirely a win. I've got one or two little complaints, but I'm going to get to as we get into specifics. But man, I was extremely happy with it.
Yeah, and you're a picky bastard, so if there's only one or two.
Sometimes.
Rachel, what about you? What was your broad takeaway from Supernova Part 2?
I love this episode. Actually, one thing I was slightly worried going into the episode because like last week's was seemed to have everything you'd want for from a season finale with like all the ship stuff that I was like, where are they going? I was like, oh, okay, we're taking the time for the emotional beat. That's why we're doing it in 2 parts. And I loved it that they actually I loved the amount of breathing room it got, that it wasn't, okay, it's a kid's show, and we only have 30 minutes, so say goodbye to this character, and sorry, are you sad? We gotta move on. But they're like, no, this is sad, and we're gonna live with that for we're
gonna make you feel sad.
Yeah.
We're not gonna brush over it.
We're gonna make you feel emotions, and you're gonna...
Well, it meant that there wasn't just one a singular sad moment, and you either felt it or not.
Yeah.
It that sort of concept sort of breathed over time.
I absolutely loved that, you got a moment to be sad before the characters realized.
Yeah, that was there's a certain, I've seen that sometimes in other shows where you are anticipating the heartbreak of other characters, and it hits you extra hard because you're like, oh no,
oh no, they're happy, they're not gonna be happy anymore in a moment.
Oh my god, when Rock Talks when she goes, I'm so confused, where's Janeway?
Oh god, the motion's Janeway needs to see this, and I was like, oh no.
Oh no, yeah.
Y'all are making me cry now just describing that.
Man,
I'm sorry.
That's the kind of episode it was.
Yeah. Emotional. I should have put waterproof mascara on if we're gonna cry during this.
Aaron, what about you? What did you think about Supernova Part 2?
I am consistently amazed at how much story can go into a 22, 25-minute show. Just it felt like a much longer, in a good way, ending. It just it was great. Like you said, the fact that we got the more it actually in some ways felt like almost the writer's response to the Voyager ending, which just was like end,
This
and
is
it
how
feels
y'all
like
have done it.
yeah, because we've got
you're not wrong.
It's got a bunch of like, okay, just the emotional beats. We get, we also got melancholy, which you kind of don't always get in a kid's show, where it's like, Gwen is taking off and it's great. She got her name. She's the unifier. Just like the Vindicator and that. And but it was a happy sad thing. It was both
for sure.
And that I honestly not yes, I bring up TAS a lot, but it feels like in Star Trek, in animated Star Trek, it's the first time it kind of goes back to yesteryear, where you actually did feel sad about Spock and his his losing his pet. But yeah, so it was just fantastic overall, and we got our trial and I'm really curious if next year we're going to, or next season, kind of go one last prejudice that the Federation has is people who are genetically engineered. It's like they treat them really poorly, more so than any that you normally see. So I'm curious if that's going to come up somehow, if we're going to
intuiting a little bit from behind the scenes in the ready room that they did for this episode, and thanks for telling me that they did one, Fathery, because it was great.
And everyone else should know that because they don't do many for Lower Decks or Prodigy. They get like 1 or 2 a season. So there is a new episode of Ready Room with Will Wheaton. Go check it out.
Weird how much less they get for that kind of stuff than the live action shows.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of get it. It's and maybe it feels like a half-hour animation. There's just not as much to talk about. But
there's less engagement.
Wrong.
I mean, like we get less engagement when we talk about Prodigy and Lower Decks, which I think is kind of criminal because they've been really good. I get like they might not be everyone's flavor, but there's a lot of quality in both of them. Especially this episode of Prodigy. So
the thing I was going to mention is on the episode, I'm going to blank on what's the name of the actor who does Dow.
Voice actor Gray.
Brett Gray, who's been doing a great job throughout this. He kind of quipped. He talked actually seriously about the augment thing. And I take it back. Yeah, he quipped about some other stuff. He was talking seriously about this, and actually the notion of it sort of being the last prejudice of Starfleet at the time. And he was talking about how like he interfaces with it as a black actor that has a little bit of extra resonance for him.
Yeah.
And so just the fact that he brought it up leads me to think it's kind of maybe been a topic of discussion. It's like I'm sure behind the scenes they've discussed that they had to, because they wanted that's got to be part of his character. And so I think they're going to address it. I feel all but certain that it's going to be a thing, and probably next season.
And just something I'd like to add to that real quick before I give kind of my opening statement on the episode, but I know one of our patrons and someone who's with us right now in the live audience, Joanne Robertson, has commented before about Gray's story. She said as a black woman, she identified with his struggle to find his past and his origin, because it's a lot harder for black people in America to trace their ancestry and look up their family history and stuff, and so there's another parallel there that I think is interesting.
Yeah, the show it can go deep even when you might not catch it at first. Just one of the. I think this Fathery broadly, you're talking about people like not keeping up as much on Prodigy and Lower Decks, and I think that it's going to take a little extra proselytization, because Trek is primarily known as a live action medium. Like it's flirted, it's done animation as far back as the 70s. It's done shorts, it's certainly employed it, but it's just not what it's known for. Most people, if they think Trek, that is not what they think of first. at least maybe until we get to now. We'll start seeing what people say. I've seen more than one person say that it's like this is Trek's best first season that Prodigy had. That it didn't have any really stale episode in that first season. That's impressive. I mean, that's I think it's going to continue. I think it's going to snowball as far as buzz goes. It just won't quite happen instantly.
Yeah,
especially considering that for New Trek, it has by far the longest first season.
Yes.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's true. That's true. And it's funny. Like sometimes I want a short season, but especially if I've been watching Deep Space Nine, I was reminded that sometimes I like the little nooks and crannies you can go to when you've got a little bit more space to play around with.
I know that filler episodes get like a bad rap. I feel like filler episodes were always, hey, let's explore character. And so you don't necessarily get that now.
That might be a fun Tex-Trek to do sometime. Pick a few favorite filler episodes that we like and chat them up, give them their day.
Yeah. But in the old days, no one called them filler. Those were just episodes.
Right?
So.
Yeah. We only in the Game of Thrones era are we like, well, how does this move things forward?
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. You get to hang out with like Geordi a little more. Like
Yeah, they're like hangout episodes. That's a good way to put it.
I think one of the reasons this season also didn't feel long in that sense is it was broken up in two.
Yeah.
It was really 2 seasons. And it played out.
That is true.
Two Christmases without action figures.
It's nuts.
As Rachel loves to remind us and remind the people with CBS merchandise.
A moment during this episode where I was like, I feel like this was meant for toys, and I'm so confused about everything behind the scenes of the show.
I felt like
we're getting Prodigy toys in 2023, so we're almost there.
I felt like what I needed this episode was an original Murph toy to hold while I was feeling my feels.
Yes, exactly.
I'm gonna go pre-order. I'm gonna pre-order all those toys later tonight after I sing this terrible song I have to sing. Later.
What'd you think about the episode, Father? What were your thoughts?
Well, last week I said I really liked the message of that episode, and I'm gonna have to repeat myself. I really like the message of this week's episode as well, which is sad. But it's important. But I mean, I'll just be kind of blunt. But yeah, mommy and daddy ain't gonna be around forever. They're gonna die and force you to grow up. It's one of my favorite movies. It's also animated thing aimed for children, but the Transformers movie from 1986, not the shitty Michael Bay stuff, but the actual like Transformers the movie. The people joke around like, yeah, it was just like made to like sell toys and stuff, but it had like this really cool message in it about like, you can't rely on the authority, on like the institutions or whatever, your mentors, your teachers, your parents, they're not going to be around forever. At some point, you're going to have to step up and grow up. And it's sad, it's tragic, but that is life. That's part of childhood. That's part of adolescence. And I love that being presented through Star Trek in a meaningful way like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it also showed something from like the parent perspective, like Hollow Janeway. I say this as someone who's like not a parent, but from what I can imagine what that is like is, it's your job to do what Rock Talk said. You let the young stars become what they're meant to grow into. And you do that knowing that, you're not going to be there to see like the end results, but that's part of the process. Like you play your role to get them there, and then they continue where you leave off. And sorry, I'm getting emotional like describing all this, but it was a very satisfying conclusion to this 20 episode run that they did. And it's something I really wish that the live action Star Treks could become a little bit more consistent with, sticking the landing at the end of the season. And they also did like the really cool thing. Well, something that we had speculated about, but I'm just going to compare it to the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer that we talk about a lot in recent months. I feel like we bring it up on the show a lot, but how after 3 seasons of that show, slight spoilers, but after 3 seasons, they were all like in high school, they hung out in the library, they blew up the school, they graduated, they had to move on to like different stuff. So that's like all of a sudden like the structure of the show kind of shifted. It's like, oh, we have to have, these characters on like different sets and they're doing different things in their life. And it really made that show continue to feel fresh into seasons 4, 5, 6, 7, And it's not something like Star Trek does. You get season 1 of the Next Generation, they're hanging out on the Enterprise, Picard is captain. There's some things that change, but season 7 is not entirely like that different. It's like, for the most, Tasha's gone, Wesley's gone, but for the most part, it's the same show. I think it's cool to have a Star Trek show that is, and I know not Prodigy, Discovery did this too. They kind of really shook up their status quo, but I like seeing that Prodigy is doing that. I think season 2
like
is
a little
going to be
variety
very
fathery.
different.
So that you've got sometimes you have Star Trek that's a little on the what I'd call the cozy side, where you go and you hang out with your friends and it's not going to like shake up too much from between episodes. And then there's others where it's like you want to they kind of embrace the growth and transition.
I don't know. There's some shows, I think TNG is one, where sometimes like if Troy's hair was a completely different seasons, I wouldn't I'm not positive I would understand with season 2 to season 5. Like
I remember way back when these were originally airing and reading an article about between seasons like 2 or 3, and they were asking I think Gates about things that would be going on with her character, and she was having to say my hair color is going to be a little different. It's more auburn or whatever, and I was like, oh no. it
one thing, if you
notice
bad. The transition, between the season ending and the beginning of the time travel one when they go back to San Francisco, Time's Arrow. Apparently, time travel tans you and makes your hair much poofier. So if you look at Troy, she went on vacation in between when they shot the 2 episodes.
Oh, there is a season of Friends where they come back and Matthew Perry. It's supposed to be later that afternoon, and Matthew Perry has dropped 15 pounds. And it's that is
that weight loss plan.
Yeah.
Heroin.
I
don't that one.
It was also fun seeing a lot of our predictions, come true. I think almost everything we getting a trial. At one point, Starfleet Boy was on here talking about what if they blow up the protostar? We're like, they wouldn't do that, but that happened. I was
like, wow, I was genuinely shocked that they did
We should have known it. Every episode in the introduction, every week it explodes at the end. It flies up and goes like that. We're literally watching it blow up every week
in the intro.
In the intro.
Oh my god.
Even though a lot of our predictions kind of came true, they none of it happened in the way I expected. Well, I thought if they did a trial episode, it would maybe be about augment stuff, and it'd be a trial episode. This was arguably a trial scene.
Yeah.
And I also expected time travel, and like you said, Father, we got sort of a more deferred time travel.
That was the one big prediction I had. In fact, I said last week, I said the thing I'm most confident of, they will time travel and save Chakotay, and that didn't happen.
Right. But I thought that would be this episode, and instead things line up, and we see that is season 2. They came up with this very cool way to keep the kids working with Janeway while also having a sad reveal about a sad thing happened to Hollow Janeway.
Yeah.
And but it's they just graduated to the real deal. By the way, on this week's Ready Room, Kate Mulgrew is the big interview. She's great. She there's a great rapport and lots of interesting conversation between her and Will Wheaton. So I highly recommend that. But one of the things she talks about is how she plays Hollow Janeway versus real Janeway, Admiral Janeway, and also how she tried to show growth for Hollow Janeway, so that she was a little bit more rigid and a little more like a program, but also a program showing growth. And it was cool to see that. I suppose that was one of the unsung things that I loved about the season, was that Janeway got to be pushed back to the fore, I think, of the great captains. Voyager has a somewhat checkered reaction overall from fandom. It's not like it has a lot of people who really like it, and I think it's also been rediscovered, but it had a bit of a checkered past, I guess, as to what it could have been. So I was really enjoying kind of Janeway getting this second shot, and I think the writers really did right by her.
I think this has also proved what I've always said. I was like, while Voyager did have some issues with writing, I was like, Kate Mulgrew was always great.
Right.
I was like, if you have a problem with Voyager's writing, I just imagine if it wasn't Kate Mulgrew there, that alternate universe, that other actress. Like,
well, she wouldn't have stayed after first. They would have ended up recasting anyways.
yeah.
I actually
probably.
loved in the ready room. She's got some confidence in how she connects to the character and how she portrays it, and clearly a real connection to the character. But
Yeah.
they take a question sort of from the audience, which is like what historical like women or feminist characters or prominent women leader characters
Who
she
who
drew
did
on
you
to.
base Janeway on? And
Who
she
did you
said
base
like
Janeway on? And her
it came from
answer
herself.
is it came from herself. She like drew on internal stuff, and she didn't dismiss the question by any means. She just said that like that was her primary source, was stuff within herself. And given how how groundbreaking, how difficult, and how taxing I know that had to have been in the 90s to carry that weight, for the franchise and everything. It's I love that she was confident enough to say, I drew from me.
And me looking back on it, I was like, I'm not even sure who she could have drawn on in that time period.
Amelia Earhart.
Yeah, like there weren't a ton of characters like at the time. I feel like this is something I've talked about in other places, that like the strong female characters acted like men. Like that's how it made them strong. And I was like,
I think few of them were like leaders on the level of like a Starfleet captain, kind of that tradition Trek had started to build, has built up.
But I do remember being young and being like, it's the only way someone will take me seriously if I don't act like a girl, like if I don't act like a woman. And I'm like, no, I can wear makeup and also be badass.
Well, I remember at the Kate Mulgrew panel at Star Trek Las Vegas this year, a couple of months ago. I remember, a woman speaking to her there saying, thank you so much for being the one hero I had growing up, who was a woman over 30 years old, who wasn't a mother or love interest or wife. Yeah, like you were like the only one out of like all fiction.
Yeah. That is both great for Kate Mulgrew and something of a scathing indictment of our pop culture.
Yeah.
But I guess we're growing.
Well, let's talk about like the opening of this episode and kind of Hollow Janeway's big glorious moment and tragic moment. But when Dow's like, we're gonna have to destroy the ship. There's no autopilot. I'll stay behind and do it. I'm the captain. And then Hollow Janeway is like, no, I'll do it. Y'all can just take me on an isolinear chip. Which doesn't quite work out. But the fun thing for me in that opening bit, like it gave me goosebumps. I got excited, was when Rock Talk does like the science officer thing and like I don't know, just made me like happy. Like she's really like grown into that role.
Yeah. When she did the Geordi kind of thing, that
the technobabble thing.
What if we did this? Yeah, because like Dal had the initial idea. He's like, we need to blow up the ship and stop it. And then Rock's like, not Rock, but Jenkinpog is like, yeah, we're gonna like nuke the whole area if we do that. So then she comes in with her suggestion, and it looks like somebody's gonna have to make a sacrifice. Dal, quick to volunteer. He's taken on that role. And then Janeway coming in with saying like, here's an even better fix. And yeah, it was cool. It was like that you actually arguably had the basics of what their plan was within 2-3 minutes of the show starting.
But the other thing that I went from having like goosebumps, excited for Rock Talk, and then I started like tearing up when Hologram Janeway like sees like, oh, my file is too big, I can't fit on this isolinear chip, and you see her like hunched over the console when Dal comes back to the bridge to talk to her, and it's like she knows, like she's already made up her mind. And we know later in the episode we see that she recorded the message. So this is like she had to like compose herself for the message, and then like after she recorded that message for the kids, like then that's when she kind of collapsed. Like, wow, this sucks. I'm gonna die, and I'm never gonna see them again. But this was,
well, sorry. For me, this was the first sort of emotional moment of an episode that had a lot of them, and that's that panel or the screen grab you had previously, Fathery, is a great screen grab on a sort of symbolic level, metaphorical level, because Janeway is so small in it. Not literally. I don't think it like means to diminish her, but it just shows how she's feeling right at that moment as she's making that choice. And maybe it is a suggestion of like of what's going to happen, that she will diminish. But I I love that when he comes in and he just asks, they're hurrying. They've got like minutes to do this. And he's like, are you copied over? Is the chip ready to go? And they cut to a shot of her and she closes her eyes before she talks. And it's like she takes a deep breath like you do if you're trying to keep emotion from getting out. And I love that. That was so good. And even when she's talking to the kids afterwards, I felt like I heard her voice break a little bit. Like, she couldn't quite, she had grown enough as a hologram that she couldn't quite keep her voice wholly steady.
Yeah. Kate Mulgrew, if we can sing her praise a little bit more, like she really does put so much effort and nuance into the voice work that she does. And if you see her, at panels or like watch interviews with her on the Ready Room and stuff like that, like she's I'm surprised. I guess I probably shouldn't be surprised, but I am. Like she just how passionate and enthusiastic she is about Star Trek right now. Something like I haven't seen since maybe like when she's like doing interviews like seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Voyager, like promoting the show for UPN and stuff.
I think anyone
really
could be forgiven for getting some burnout, especially since that show wasn't without its, some difficulties along its path. But yeah, when on the Ready Room, when Will Wheaton said, "Hey, do you have any proprietary feel for Voyager as a ship, the way I kind of do for the Enterprise? Do you feel that?" And she was just like, "Yes, absolutely. I feel so connected with that ship. It is like part of me." Like
she said it changed her life.
I could feel it in her voice. Her connection right now.
And speaking of like having that connection to the ship you served on, which is how Will Wheaton described it. But I loved that the show, like it slowed down to show like how sad it is to leave the protostar, and Dal, when he has like that last moment where he like looks around before he steps into the shuttle. It's like I always feel that way. Like if I'm like I remember like like graduating high school. I remember like looking around the football field and being like, yeah, this sucks. Like this is all gonna be gone. This will be like a distant memory.
I moved like a lot as a kid, and I remember like every time leaving this house again. Like
Yeah, I can't relate to that. Like I've never lived outside of the 60-mile radius of where I live now in my late 30s, but
9 times before I started high school.
But yeah, I'm kind of a nostalgic person in general, and I also like I don't know, like I kind of like think about memories too much. Like I'm always kind of, part of me is like always kind of sad that I can't like get in a time machine, like go back to like like my grandparents' house or like somewhere like where I used to work and I had like coworkers I got along with and just like stuff like that. So it's sad for me, like when things like change like this, like like there's no going back. So I kind of connect the dot in that moment.
Doesn't Jankum, or like I think they all say something, but I think Jankum or something says like, "Oh, it feels like we were just getting used to the place," or
And he's an engineer, so of course he loves the ship.
Right.
And I was thinking for all these characters, I was like, this is the first time they had a home that wasn't the like abusive place that they were before.
And the first time where they had family.
They've got to lose it.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like, the show gave us time to show them reacting to it, but in reality they only have a few minutes before, because they have plans in motion and they got to get on it. Father, you've got some stills up of Janeway when it actually happens, and that was great too.
Did you like her? She used Dal's catchphrase, of his captain catchphrase that every show has to have now, of "Go fast."
Yeah, go fast.
Well, I might not like that as a set tradition, because that's kind of hokey and meta. In this instance, I thought it was well employed for sure.
Yeah, I think we've lost the battle on that. That's just the thing every Star Trek show is going to do from now on.
What did you say, Rachel?
I thought this was really sweet. I don't mind.
It was.
Maybe I'm known for liking the cheesy things in life, though, so I don't mind that like everyone has their own thing.
Yeah, well, that might be a fun thing to chat a little bit more about some other future time too.
Actually, it will be interesting to see if whether they try to give one to real Janeway next season.
Yeah. Will she adopt one? Will she? No, she would have no reason to use dowels or
Yeah.
anything like that. She'd be her own thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she
Do
doesn't
it.
need one. She's like,
kind of already
no,
had-
I was a Berman era captain. We didn't do that shit back in the 90s.
Speaking of back in the 90s, and this would completely change the show, but it's like anybody who had ever had to install AOL or a game or anything knew that you had more than one disk. You could have had like Janeway installation disk 1, 2, like put them on multiple chips, just a bag of chips, whatever.
Yeah.
Like
It's like
they
when you're
could have
playing
saved her.
Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1, and it's like insert disc 2 now.
Exactly.
Aaron
Exactly.
Welke, Prodigy writer, producer.
Hey.
Aaron, I hope you were watching earlier, and we were like crying, talking about how emotional this
Man.
was for us. Go back and replay this if you
Yeah.
didn't catch that. But Aaron is saying, as a character, Dow gives himself a catchphrase which feels accurate, and yeah, it does. It actually makes a lot of sense for him.
Yeah,
to do
he's
that.
a guy who has a lot of internal pain, but he gets past that with a lot of bravado and kind of
He's laughing.
what
Fits for him to have a catchphrase.
Yeah.
what reads as ego, even if it's not really.
He's laughing through the pain, which I get. I understand.
I'm not sure why Saru would want a catchphrase and like stress over it on Discovery. But
Yeah, that
honestly,
one's a
like,
little
doesn't
bit
bother
harder
me
to
that much.
justify. But I think you could argue. I could make the argument that Saru was looking, for something that was a symbol of to validate his thing, and so he was like, oh, this would, this very superficial thing will at least, help me get to that headspace or whatever. There's as much a defense as I'm going to give it. But yeah, that was a great scene. It reminded me of Spock's death and the way the sort of Genesis effect that sprang up behind them as the Enterprise is racing out at warp speed. I even felt like the music might have taken a hint from there. There was almost like this slightly ethereal. I don't know if it was like a harp or something, but it was low. It wasn't big music. It was just there in the background a little bit.
Yeah.
And it had that sort of same vibe of something important has transpired.
We get a chance to have Nami on the show, which I'm gonna try to do that. I don't know when we'll have time, but I'd love to make that happen at some point. Maybe in 2023 we can make that happen.
I feel like Father, I was saying I don't have like a deep musical knowledge, but I already feel like just in my head I've got questions percolating. I've got things I would love to ask her. So yes, that'd be fantastic.
Also, did anybody when they're at Starfleet for half a second, it kept feeling like the Marvel music a little bit. The dun 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 dun. Not exactly, but it's like it gave it that sort of like.
They had some bigness to some of the scenes in this.
Yeah, that's what I really
don't think I noticed that particular cue or whatever, but like I think my head did a little bit because I was noticing those kind of moments.
She scores Marvel movies too, though. I mean, she did Thor a few months ago.
Okay.
So
yeah, it just had that very like as somebody who did improvised Star Trek, it's that you put yourself in that headspace to feel like you're in Starfleet, and you basically stand taller and all that stuff. But that music kind of channels that.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, did y'all improv music? Did you have like you have like musicians like we're just gonna make up music to match whatever scene they're acting out?
We do have that, and not for that show, but the other shows did have that. We have somebody who can on the fly create the music. But how does
that work? Like on a piano or like
keyboards and all sorts of. That was for Ripley, which was a all-female sci-fi show, and it was like. It was amazing. It's online somewhere. I'll have to pull it up sometime. But it's like, and we had technical advisors though, so we had music that was mixed in from existing sources.
That's really cool. Well,
it was fun.
Writer-producer Aaron Welke is also saying Prodigy uses a full orchestra for its score. I want to say it's a 30-piece. Ours may be even bigger than some of the live-action shows. That's really cool. Like I don't know how many shows on Nickelodeon get a 30-piece orchestra scoring at every episode. Like every episode has its own score. They don't use canned music.
At the end, of course, they draw on the classic the notes from TOS, the bum ba bum, and it's far from the first time that we've seen that. But man, I thought this was one of the best orchestrations of it because it was sort of merged with a broader sweep of music, so it felt like it was integrated into the episode. It's when Gwen is leaving, so it's a big thing. Anyway.
Yeah. That
Right
scene was
on.
beautiful too, just the colors of the sky and everything. That
It
was just
was.
Mhm.
It
great.
was.
Like,
As
That-
was, by the way,
I
I
want an
couldn't help-
oil painting of that scene. Like
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
You talk about the one where you saw like the sort of the vista over Starfleet
Mhm.
Academy and stuff.
Mhm.
I think Starfleet Academy.
You can see like the
Um,
flags waving and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They when the protostar blew up and it sort of left that well, I guess what we now know was like a wormhole, right? That was the
Yeah.
rift.
Mhm.
That image that it showed afterwards, that sort of that very Mutara Nebula kind of visual, couldn't help but it looked a little like a phoenix to me. And
Interesting.
yeah,
see that.
take a look at it at some point and see if you don't see a little bit of a sense of that. I don't know that we've seen the last of Hollow Janeway.
Well,
Oh.
we haven't seen the last of her because there's an earlier version of her that's in that alternate future with Chakotay. So
Right.
I think
Right.
at some point we'll get there, but she'll be like, "Oh, I've never met y'all because I'm on the
Yeah.
protostar that hasn't
Right.
crashed on Tars Lamora yet."
Mhm.
So
I say at
Seems
some
like
point
you-
we should talk about thoughts of what we think might happen in
Mhm.
season 2 as far as like
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of that
Let's
kind of
hit a
stuff.
little bit of that when we get to the end.
Mhm.
well, let's talk about the sad scene right now of when they do get the news of Hollow Janeway
Oh.
is gone, and
Why is Janeway tiny?
yeah, there's like
Was
seeing their
crazy.
reaction. Gwen is
Yeah.
the
The
smartest.
dawning reaction,
Mhm.
Yeah.
realization among them that occurs for different ones at different points.
I guess
different
some of
characters at
these
different
kids are pretty knowledgeable. So Gwen might not be the smartest, but because Rock Talk has a big brain, Jinkle knows a lot of engineering stuff,
Mhm.
but she's definitely the wisest. Part
Right.
being like the most mature,
That's
she
it.
also has the most wisdom. She's like
I
the
think
first one to
Rock Talk
figure it out.
It's
If you
very
go-
book smart. Raw Talk is also the equivalent of like a 5-year-old, though.
Right.
If you watch their reactions, you see her like get sad before any of them. And I thought that was like a cool little character
I
detail.
have this feeling that this scene might have been, edited and rethought and cut, and carefully written more than almost any other scene in the whole episode. They needed this to hit, I think,
Yeah.
and they did. They really did.
And I like Jankum's like when he like vocalized his sorrow and he's just like, like he can't like hold it in. Like
Right,
that's
it's kind of like slightly
I-
comical, but it's like so
Yeah.
fitting for him.
yeah, like
also,
I'm laughing talking about it, but like
It's
I've felt
comical,
that
but-
before in life.
Sometimes you
It's
have to laugh so you don't cry.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's like comical, but in a way that I'm like, yeah, like he's kind of ugly crying. He's like, you know what? Me too. Like,
You know what? And you can hear his voice breaking a little bit when he says it. Dal is like when she tells them, "Go boldly," and he says like, what did he say? Always
That's-
telling us what to do, even to the end. And he
Yeah.
says it
oh.
like with sad wry, kind of a wry amusement, but it's tempered with sadness, of course.
Mhm.
It's that, man. That was some writing. Good job,
Oh,
writers.
It's so good. And I'm gonna start crying again.
I know. It's like
Yeah, and I also want to that's a shout out again to the voice actor. Once again.
Well, we should talk about the happier moments of the episode,
Yeah.
which I think it was very delightful. All of us as Star Trek fans, I think it is kind of exciting to see Starfleet headquarters, to see Earth, see the Golden Gate Bridge.
and I want to say
Go ahead,
sorry.
Aaron.
I was say visually, I think this is the first time that I feel like they captured the quality of light of San Francisco at that latitude, and there's just something about it. It's like, oh, that's California. That's where I've been. Where all the other ones kind of like, oh, that was a matte painting, or they threw in some clouds from whatever. But it's like, oh, this looks like California, and I can't explain it, but
yeah, that's interesting.
Idealized, obviously. It's
Does
like,
it look
it's
more
super
like
great.
California than the yellow filter they use, like all of Picard season 2?
Yeah. Well, that yellow filter could be when we have a lot of fires. So sure.
That was LA.
Turns out there was
area here.
Yeah, turns out there was no fire, just fire season.
Right.
I was talking about how this the second half of the episode that shows all the follow through stuff, the through lines of the stories, sets up new stuff, resolves several existing plot lines. every once in a while, like, movies do this kind of thing, and they'll, like, in the last 5 minutes do it, or even I've seen sometimes like over the credits, they'll intercut it with little glimpses of life after the thing, and you get these sort of satisfying moments. And I'm so glad that they went ahead and just gave it its scenes, because there was actually a lot to resolve. And sometimes you get to the end of something and you're like, wow, they just had so much to do. I didn't think that they could finish it all, and they kind of didn't. And they did a good job, but they left. It would have been nice to see this resolved. Well, I think they kind of hit all the major stuff. I don't know if there's anything more that I would have wanted. I didn't need to see a visual of Chakotay. I didn't need to see the diviner, as he exists now on Solum. Is that what it is? They hit all the big things. What is the future of the kids? What is the future of Gwen? What's going to happen to Chakotay? Like, yes, it's not all resolved, but we know precisely where all the pieces are on the chessboard.
One thing that I would have liked to have known is how they ended up in the bay. Like, they were just like, what? Like, that feels like they would have found them in space or something and then brought them to Earth or whatever. That was just like, I want to know that story. What happened there?
It's funny that you mentioned the Voyager finale earlier, because this thing kind of reminded me of the like false ending part of the Voyager ending.
Remember when they were like pointing at things and stuff, and they weren't quite pointing right at the ship because it was the effect was put in later? That's actually what that scene where she comes outside and is pointing, and then the ships go by. It's like, oh, that feels very like live action-y, which is kind of funny. Anyway, sorry.
Well, but before the kids show up in the bay, there's that little science lesson of exposition, which was it was convenient how they dropped this in here between like the big moments, because it did answer a lot of the questions that the audience, especially like how Star Trek nerds are, where we want to know like all the little details and stuff. So I appreciated this, but the explanation of what exactly happened, the Hollow Janeway was such a badass that not only did she save everyone, but she also blew up the protostar in a way where it would create an almost identical wormhole to go to the time and space where Chakotay is. So now they have the ability to go rescue him.
And somewhere in there, she knocked out her quick recording of herself on a hologram too. Big
She's
ups to
great.
Hollow
She's awesome.
Janeway.
She's
again, I feel like this show is rejuvenating Janeway's, her prominence in a way that I really liked. But yeah, that was cool. So yes, like you said, Father, a little science explanation delivered by a Vulcan, no less. So it's like, oh, we can take this as fact. It's a Vulcan.
Yeah, and he threw on some shade on the proto. When he's like the criminals from Tarslam, where Janeway was like, "Excuse me, you put some respect on that when you talk about them kids in front of me."
I was a little when they kept referring to them as criminals. I was like, they're all minors.
They're minors, and then they were slave minors also.
I know the show didn't lean into the casualties, but there had to have been casualties in this. And even if we only allowed for the ship destruction, so I can understand how some people might be like, before everything is tumbled out and we know exactly who was responsible for what, they might be like, these kids were responsible for that, So there may be some animosity.
I get it. But I'm gonna say there was probably some casualties on that slave planet they were on.
I appreciate that Janeway has the foresight or the bigger picture knowledge and the boldness to say, you don't talk that shit while I'm around.
Yeah.
The question I had when they're on their shuttle, in the water under the Golden Gate Bridge, was not only just how did they actually like get their shuttle like all the way down to like next to Starfleet HQ without like getting shot at or something? But
maybe that's why they have no roof. Maybe they were shot at.
But Jenkins an innovative guy.
Yeah.
He might have been like he may have just figured something out.
There was like debris in the water like around their shuttle. Like, did like another ship blow up or something? Like what's I don't know if there's like a deleted scene
because it seems like more material than there was like on the shuttle. At least the roof. It's like, where?
Maybe someone spotted them out a little farther away, but he's like, no, get them close to the bridge. It'll be a cool moment.
I don't know if Aaron Waltke can shed any light on what's going on there.
They killed some people to land. By the way, Aaron, a few minutes ago when we were talking about the sort of the epilogue to it, dropped a comment in there that let's see. Oh wait, there it is. He said, personally, I love epilogues. When Return of the King ended 7 times, I was here for all of it. and I think
so many endings.
It's one of those things where, if you're not feeling it, yes, it feels gratuitous. If you're feeling it, and I think that relies on, did the writers come through? Did everything come through? The actors pull it off? You can't always pull it off. You guys pulled it off. So it's just like Return of the King. It's like, I'm when it works, I'm so there for it. It's an emotional ride that is earned, and I'm there to ride that wave.
And it wasn't like this went on for hours. It was a 25-minute show or 22
so it's not like you've been holding in your pee for 3 hours, like a lot of audiences were with Return of the King. If you watch Return of the King with the Peter Jackson commentary, he actually says, I remember 20 years ago watching that DVD commentary, and he's just in his New Zealand accent is I call it the Blad effect. They just couldn't hold in the pee anymore.
This is why, if we're going to keep having movies this long, hey, intermissions, guys.
I'm not going to see that Avatar sequel because I'm just I don't have 3 hours and 15 minutes to spend. I'm sure it's a fine movie, but I just I don't have I can't forgive Wakanda Forever for its unnecessary runtime. I can't forgive The Batman for its unnecessary runtime. Those movies don't need to be that.
Father, what about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? I think
that's good. That's actually really good, though.
Yeah, I know. Also,
Avatar, a movie that is so boring and easy to follow that I didn't have the Navi subtitles and didn't notice when I first watched it.
Oh, that's right. That was. By the way,
Father, did you see that Aaron also did? He did throw out a notion about the ship and the debris and stuff, or just how they got in. He said it dropped out of warp and was detected too late to be intercepted, a la the Bird of Prey in Trek 4. So quick and simple explanation there. Let's not overthink it.
Oh no, I wasn't over. I just was curious. It was sort of that would have been
sure.
No, someone put that, some animator put that for a reason. Right. They weren't just here's some blue water. Let's just add some junk floating around for no reason. I knew there was some explanation.
It was another one of the overall pleasant surprises that moment, because I actually thought, because they had kind of made a point that the shuttle was, hastily designed. It was no frills. There wasn't a lot to it. That I was like, oh, is actually that going to be their ship for the next season? Them trying to out there in the wilderness.
I thought that for a second.
I was worried they were going to be stranded. I was like, oh, are we going to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back? They meet Starfleet, but now they're going to be separate from them again. So I was relieved when it's 1 month later and they're back.
I was like, oh, good, only a month.
It sucks that they were stuck in a shuttle for a month with not they're all kind of crammed. It'd be if you're stuck in a minivan with 4 other people or 5 other people
for a month.
Wow, that was the 60s, Valerie. That's just how people lived.
I don't think many people would want to live.
I did that in the 90s. It's expensive for a family of 5 to fly. Everyone
the only thing that's missing
from dog.
From the ocean is a whale just coming, just oh look, they're back.
Just whale breaches.
They could have George and Gracie's great grandchildren.
Oh, I was thinking one of the dolphins. They might not be dolphins from Lower Decks. Just swim by.
Yeah, belugas.
Oh yeah, exactly, the belugas.
But yeah, I thought that the kids were maybe going to have adventures next season or part of next season where they would be trying to live up to Starfleet stuff, but with very limited resources or something. But so I was pleasantly surprised that they moved that timeline forward, and they're yeah, these kids are just like Janeway said, they're smart, they're adaptable, they figured it out, they got to Earth.
Yeah, and she really goes up to bat for them. And I think that part of why they made her so aggressive. I know some people had big issues with her shooting at the protostar. I feel that was I think it wouldn't be that hard for the Dauntless to non-lethally disable warp engines on a ship. But some people got like really like freaked out by that. Like, oh my god, she's like shooting at them. But
I figured she's trying to like disable because they keep running away from her. She doesn't know why.
Yeah. But
like,
you know,
stop moving.
Here she really kind of like makes it up to them. And she teased this like in Mind Walk, like when she got to talk, and she was like, "Oh, I had like the totally wrong idea about all of you." And then here where she's like defending them in front of the scary looking admirals, which I'm glad that they didn't just like have Jellicoe be here for this. It's like, oh, it's like a real fleet. Like there's a bunch of different admirals and stuff. It's not just like the same dude, same familiar faces.
Jellicoe runs all precincts of the police.
There's a Tellarite admiral on that panel who's like, this isn't a space camp for children.
Yeah, I love that.
I was like,
space camp is a thing in the 24th century.
I was like, I don't know. How old was Wesley when he went? Like,
he was either 14 or 15 the first time he took the entrance exam in Coming of Age in Next Generation Season 1. So there's
which is where we first heard about Denebian slime worms. So a little bit of
yes, same episode.
I was on Janeway's side when he's like, when they stole. I was like, stole is a really weird way to put used this thing to get away from their captors.
Right,
they were like, slaves
if slaves found a ship and an empty a abandoned ship and
abandoned
to escape their enslavement. So yes, good on Janeway for calling it like it is.
There's a story about from Katrina where like a young man like stole a bus. He got they found a working school bus and they all got on the bus to get out of New Orleans. I was like, that's not stealing. That's
that's surviving.
Yeah.
But there are usually, even in, I guess arguably even in Trek's more utopian timeline, there are people who will frame it that way for various reasons, usually to work something to their advantage.
Also, they tried to give it back and bad stuff happened.
Right.
Yeah,
you wanted it. Here you go. Oops, sorry.
But I think everyone agrees it makes a lot of sense, that they would have like at least like a hearing or like we gotta at least like have like some like formal explanation of this like on the records, right?
This is the kind of nice high drama way to do it, where a few key sequences resolve it.
And it is very Star Trek
very
4
dark room, which is nice. They always have like these in like scary dark rooms with backlights and This was nice.
The scary dark room in the first episode of Discovery like wouldn't have bothered me, where they're doing like Michael Burnham's court martial, if they had just like added like that little bell you ring. I felt like that would have like balanced out like the dark menace, but also kind of like I don't know, like the fun Star Trek flavor of it. But they didn't do that, and I'm like, they should have had the little bell. They should have ring the bell. But
maybe in a director's cut one day, Father. Maybe
it is very Star Trek
when we get the remastered editions.
It is very Star Trek 4 not to just save everyone, crash your ship in San Francisco Bay, but then you have to stand trial after that.
Yeah.
Did they do a thing where the group was in Trek 4 where they're waiting around to hear the verdict too?
No, that guy was he like the president of the Fed? I don't know who he was, but the guy who like was he like just chairman of the council or whoever?
I know there was like one point where they're like, we'll be lucky to have a like any ship after this, where they were sitting around awaiting their fate. But I'm blurring what Trek movie it was.
They're well, I mean, like earlier in the movie, like when they're leaving Vulcan, Kirk is like whatever fleet we end up serving in. Or no, that was Star Trek 3. That's Star Trek 3 after
I feel like there's a scene where Sulu or Chekhov is expressing sort of sentiment like that, and they are like waiting on a verdict.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That all sounds familiar.
No, the guy was like pretty fast with the verdict in Star Trek 4.
I mean, I'm probably thinking of like another movie, but there is something.
You're thinking of earlier conversations they had in Star Treks 3 and 4, where they talk about like, we're going to be in trouble when we get back.
Maybe I'm going to look into this.
Okay.
Oh no, you have to watch more. You have to rewatch Star Trek.
Oh no.
What a shame.
Yes.
But I guess 5 of them get to go be on Janeway's training ship. Gwen has her own side mission. I did 2 things here. I did One, I really appreciated the excuse for not like fast tracking them into the academy. That like, oh well, that's kind of unfair to all the more
I think
qualified.
That was David Max doing. From what I
Probably,
understood.
yeah. But yeah, that was a very good reason. I was like, yeah, that makes absolute sense. Like, yeah, there's these people on the waiting list. Like, it'd be unfair to them. Cool.
Yeah.
The weird thing to me is like Murph, I guess, is qualified to be like a non-commissioned officer in Starfleet.
When they said 5, I just for a second I was like, "Yo, Murph's a pet." Like,
I kind of love the fiction's tradition of field commissions and things like that.
Yeah.
That so much rule breaking, and I'm usually there for it. I think the other reason not to drop them into Starfleet Academy is that the whole first season was essentially their trial by fire. They had they had sort of done their training. They trained in the holodeck. Janeway trained them. Sort of in a way, not that I couldn't see them in a school environment, but it would feel constrained after the stories of them zipping around. And they were already doing Kirk type adventures and going to planets,
Right.
Also,
Rock Talk is like 5. I'm not sure Rock Talk should keep going to the military.
Well, I think she's older than that because she spent, we don't know how long, but apparently like years in that timeline where she's just by herself.
No,
she certainly projects youthfulness, but I think it's like there's some vagaries of alien aging, perhaps, and all of that.
And I'm kind of ready for them to age her up. Like I kind of want to see her like go through a metamorphosis of her own. I kind of want to see her as like I feel like we started out with like 8-year-old Rock Talk, and then we kind of like matured her up to like, I don't know, maybe like almost preteen. I'm kind of ready to see.
Yeah, I was gonna say 11 or 12.
Yeah, I want to see like Rock Talk who's like old enough to start learning how to drive or something.
No, I like
bump her up to like 15, 16.
I like as she is. It could be weird to have like sort of dire ship situations and sort of have her interacting with like a mostly adult crew. It might start feeling weirder then.
And I'm sure she's going to. They're all going to grow up. Like.
Yeah,
but don't we think? Well, I don't know how long. I guess the Chakotay premise is probably not going to run the whole season. Although I don't know. There may be.
We never find him.
that actually it could take. We know that there's at least 40 episodes that they planned out at least the first 40 episodes, and who knows if there's going to be more Prodigy or not. It could take the entire 40 episodes to say. It could take the entire 40 episodes to save Chakotay.
If I had to guess, though, I bet that it'll either be the first half of season 2, or maybe within the first few episodes that they will resolve the major plot, but something else will be uncovered by it, and they'll have to deal with that.
Right. The guys at Captain's Quarters or Camp. I don't know. It's I can't remember the name of it. Sorry. Joke that it's like Murph is a changeling. Just like it's like there's no way that he's pretending to that he's just pretending and he'll change or something. Like okay.
I'm scared. Stress-free K in the comments suggested that Murph could be a candidate for Section 31, and I'm like, no, let him be innocent.
You know what? I would actually be thrilled if like. So at some point in the future, it's like an older Murph. It's like like at some point, it's like 20, 30 years after this, and there's like this like badass like shape-shifting operative or something, and he's like, yeah, like I'm Murph. I was at Tars Lamora with Dal and Gwen and Rock Talk.
And then he grabs the door and starts singing.
I don't want. I kind of like in the same way I didn't like 7 of 9 as like a sort of a special ops type ranger person. I kind of want these characters to have futures that aren't black ops. like I guess
I wouldn't want that for all of them, but I mean it would make the most sense for him since he's like the security dude.
Murph has a perpetual kind of grin on his face. I want that innocence to stick around. I can't have him strangling somebody from behind. I just can't.
Like I think that'd be cool. Like if they get to that point, like give him like plenty of years as like youthful Murph. But
do you see Murph in Section 31? I think it'd still be Murph in Section 31, but still on a kid show. So it's not.
These characters are going to exist in the Star Trek universe forever.
This is true.
Like. I'm thinking like long term, like years from now, You know, someone like, hey, when I was a kid, I grew up on Star Trek Prodigy. Like, what if we brought back some of those characters in like this new show and like something like that?
One thing I wanted to say about
Hologram
this
Murph.
one thing I wanted to say about this scene is I loved how much Dal grew. That as soon as he, when he heard it's only 5, he's like, "It's okay, guys. Like, we knew this was a chance." And I was like,
he is definitely,
"Damn, Dal!" Like,
he kind of made his peace with it, with that, and in the last episode or two, and was clearly ready to be the guy who took a hit for the team.
Yeah,
well, he was ready to give his life, literally.
He went from being like the most self-centered to the most selfless.
Yeah.
I when I was posting about this on Facebook earlier, and a friend was like, I haven't watched the show. I didn't really like he's like, I was really put off by the first few episodes. He's like, he basically said he felt Dal was so egocentric and obnoxious, and he put his team members at risk, and he just didn't like him.
Yeah,
and I was like,
I thought that was such a weird criticism when people were saying that, because it's like, is it not obvious to y'all they're doing this to make it easier to give him an arc so that they can mature him? Like,
I think
just
part
enjoy
of
the ride and keep watching.
I think part of it is the broad strokes you do in animation. You kind of heighten everything. And so him being egocentric was turned up more than it might have been. And I think some people who are used to the sort of more nuanced side of live action were like, I don't know about that.
I think it's is that stuff written for kids to be able to get are not going to be quite as nuanced, because you want them to be able to get the message right away and not have to like read between the lines
and all that,
and like not have to read between the lines in a way that I can, because I've been consuming media for almost 30 years and I understand what someone's trying to imply. A 10-year-old like might not.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. That's exactly the case.
I think the feeling when I was first watching it about him was, it's like he came across as an annoying kid. I mean, it's like, and somebody who's like
that though.
No, I know, and it's like, that's why I figured, obviously it's going to change. But it's like, oh wow, you are really like that kid that's next door that I would rather not be in our yard. Just sort of like, so I could see somebody being like. Yeah,
you could kind of react viscerally against, I think, like annoying kids in particular, where you might be like, oh, if you saw a swaggering adult, like the way Starbuck was in the early episodes, well, all episodes of Battlestar Galactica, that, like, there was like, oh, wow, this character is obnoxious, but she's obnoxious in kind of a cool, very watchable way, whereas a kid could kind of grate on you a little bit more easily. I think.
I know. I like a character. My favorite Star Trek character is Bashir. I obviously like a character that goes through some growth. Like,
it's like you watch like the first episode of Smallville, and Clark Kent is like this whiny, annoying teenager, and then he's always, from that episode on, like he's always like a little bit more mature than that. It's like, they do that to like give themselves an arc. If you start off with like the kids already like had the shit together, then it's a lot harder to craft an arc. But I guess not everyone braces for that like I do. I could just kind of assume that going in.
If he starts out with his shit together, what's the story?
Right, exactly.
Me and a few friends said to this guy, it's like, we're like, give it a few more episodes, take another shot at the show. I think you will see. I like like, spoiler warning, I'm like, you will see the character grow.
You know what you could do instead of going to watch Avatar: The Way of the Water, you can watch 7 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy in that same amount of time.
We don't have to pit the franchises. But I wanted to, in the comments, Cake is Eternal said Gwen is such a beautiful being. So let's quick jump over to Gwen, she has like, I think, was it the suggestion that she had already made this decision, talked it over with Janeway and stuff, and had not quite revealed it to her friends yet?
Yeah, we don't know when that decision was made or who came up with it, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
So she's going back to Solum. Well,
I would imagine she got advice from Janeway about it as well. That she was like, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking. Like, do you agree?"
I think she was probably requested by Starfleet. Like, we are kind of terrified that your planet almost like brought down our fleet. We're kind of like the biggest superpower in the galaxy. We've defeated both the Borg and the Dominion. Can you please like go to your people and tell them to like chill. Like you're not alone. You're not alone in the universe. There's other life forms out there. We don't want to hurt you. Please do not like send the living construct after us.
Well, the way she talked about it though was you know, that is her heritage. Those are her people. And when she talks about it, it's like she's not afraid. It's a combination of trepidation and and her own courage, I guess I'd say, where she's like, she's hoping that as one of their own, she can sort of be the person. Yeah. Did they call her the Uniter?
Gwendala the Unifier.
Who said that? Who was it who said that?
That was Zero.
I think Zero.
Yeah. Zero, who got I guess we'll get to this. Like, got a freaking new body.
Yeah, let's talk about the ending. Let's talk about the ending.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. But the
the
ending we have.
I was gonna say I liked the romantic bit in this episode a little more because I was like, oh, it makes more sense to me that like, hey, we're wanting to establish these two characters have a deep connection if we're going to separate them next season.
Yeah, they got to. I felt almost kind of bad for him because they got to express it, and Gwen got to say, yes, this is not some one-sided thing like your impulsive kiss in the previous episode. It is reciprocal, but it's going to have to be kind of like there's a like Aaron said, there's a melancholy to the episode. It's sweet, but you also know that they can't like pursue it much right now. But there is still like, I know like how probably good that feels for them to know that they've got that connection.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a convenient spot, you know, if you're like nervous kids, this is your first love and everything. Like the fact that there is going to be like some separation, that they are doing the long distance thing. Like,
right.
I don't know. I think for me as a teenager, like that it kind of sucked to be away from.
But there's a certain quality that it would have, Fathery. Like it's like it takes the
pressure off.
It takes definitely some pressure off.
It's like, okay, like here's a good excuse to kind of like baby step it into this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that shot, Father, you have the screenshot of her kind of putting her little pinky finger over his finger, and you know, it's super sweet. What a great shot.
But yeah, Rock Talk gets a new body. That is like a lot. I've seen a lot of praise for this episode.
Zero.
I'm sorry. Zero gets a new body. I've said like I've seen so much praise for this episode online. The one thing that like everyone seems to complain about is it surprised me. A lot of people like really hate the new Zero body, but I like it. I think it looks cool.
I think it looks cool.
Very Apple Store.
But I laughed because this was the moment where I was like, I feel like I'm watching the new toy line, but there is no old toy line yet.
Oh yeah, it's like this is replacing the first Zero toy, which isn't out yet.
Yeah, exactly. I actually burst out laughing because I was like, "What?" I was like, "I'm not crazy." Like this is.
You know, Father, I believe early on I said like one of the few designs I wasn't super into was Zero's because it looked a little steampunkish,
and I kind of thought.
I felt like, you know, it just wasn't quite an aesthetic that we've seen for.
He built it himself.
This seems more compatible with Starfleet, which makes sense because this was built by Starfleet. We see the people who build it for him or build it with him.
It is funny.
The transition totally made sense to me. It was like old body was kind of thrown together with old parts at Charles Lamore. Hey, look, a body actually built for Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Zero seems to look like they enjoy it. But it is funny, like, although it seems like maybe there is some, you know, negative reactions. I'm just looking at our comments, and Joanne said it looked like a stormtrooper. I also saw Starfleet Boy say it looked like NASA. I think the reaction some people have of thinking it looked like some of the designs in Portal. There's lots of different ways you can lens it. It definitely, but it is clearly a modern look to. I am certainly willing to let this one grow on me. I like that I like that Zero doesn't have to look as junkyardy.
Maybe he'll have lots of, you know, features like R2-D2 does or something, like different. The legs fold up and he can float, or, you know, like we don't know what it can do yet.
There's some weird inconsistencies with the legs when they're talking to Janeway on the steps in front of that hangar that has the new Protostar class ship. It's like some shots you see Zero standing on his legs, and then it'll cut away, and then like it'll cut back, and he's floating, and then it'll cut away and cut back, and he's got his legs deployed again, and then it cuts back, and like the
just a
legs
reminder,
are retracted.
not he, but they.
Or they, yeah.
They're not sure what to do with the new legs yet. They're trying to figure out what works for them.
Yeah, there you go. There's our explanation.
Yeah. And that happened in the old body too. There would occasionally be like those inconsistent shots like that. But
yeah, I think we'll have time to grow into it and see what Zero's going to do with that new body.
But yeah,
wouldn't be an animated Star Trek without some inconsistencies.
Right, that's a Star Trek tradition for 50. I think we could say 50 years now, right?
50 years next year.
Because when did production begin on the animated series? Mister literally wrote the book on it.
April of 73. So
okay, so not quite 50
next
years,
year,
but
yeah, exactly.
Within a few months, it will be 50 years since they began work on that, which is cool. But Janeway teases, you're not getting this new Protostar class ship. I have something much bigger in mind for y'all. So that's something I'll talk about in the Gorneg. Something that Aaron spotted before I did. So it's
I even put my name as that.
I want art of this shot. It's so pretty.
It needs to be a print.
But also they need to make a big Star Trek theme park so we can all walk around Starfleet Academy and get photos.
Don't they want to build one in China? Doesn't like Paramount have something over there that they're gonna try to to build a Trek theme park?
I still want them to remember that that they're building an entirely new Universal Park in Orlando, and I'm like, hey, I have an idea. Why don't you do part of that?
I just want them to bring back Star Trek: The Experience because I hate myself so much for never going.
Well, in Vegas, they were going to build that giant Enterprise at one point. That was, the life size, hotel room basically.
Mm-hmm.
You could bring that back.
This is also a really good shot.
Yeah.
It is a little weird to see the kids all in uniform again. I'm so used to seeing Rock Talk's bricks that I slightly I slightly didn't like the uniform on her because I need to see the bricks.
They have these uniforms for what? This is the 12th episode since they.
I was trying
but these are different. They're a little different now. They flipped the black and the gray. It used to be they had the gray on the shoulders and the rest was dark. And now it's the other way around.
I didn't realize it was actually a change up.
Yeah, and they have the new comm badges. They have the all good things comm badges.
I will say I'm glad they didn't try to put Zero in one. That would be really funny.
But does he have a comm badge? I think it's isn't there one magnetized to him? Or am I imagining that?
Not that I'm aware of. There might be one built into their suit.
Yeah.
No, that would make
I assume it has some type of transceiver abilities. But when you're a telepath, what do you need a comm badge for? You can just think into people's brains when you want to tell them something.
Because maybe they don't want you to do that.
Yeah. Hey, what's up? Bring cheese. I don't know. That's where my brain went.
But that
the collars on Rock Talk and and Jankum Pot is the collar looks odd, it's missing something. It's it feels like a t-shirt that's stretched too much.
Yeah, they don't have the high collar.
Dal has the collar. And,
I think that Rock Talk doesn't seem to have a neck.
I mean, neither one of them really has much of a neck, so
no, but this makes it more clear that they don't.
To be fair, I've always wanted more Starfleet uniforms that are not turtlenecks because I don't like wearing turtlenecks.
I would love if someone would make the Prodigy uniforms, like the ones that the people on the Dauntless wear. I love I'm a big fan the wraparound uniforms and the ones that have a bunch of color. So I love that there's more color than just black on these. I mean, I love the Deep Space Nine black and grays, but I really appreciate a colorful, bright future in my Star Trek. So I would love to own one of these uniforms and cosplay one of these uniforms.
Actually, I really love the dark, the TNG movie Deep Space Nine ones, and I feel like those are the hardest ones to try and buy. Or at least I've never seen anyone sell those in a women's cut.
Yeah, I was about to say those are pretty easy to buy, but I've only looked for the male versions. So But,
hey, I'm trying to remember. Among our various predictions, did anybody think that the kids would end up linking up and working alongside Vice Admiral Janeway?
Yes, yeah, I said that. I
Yeah.
said like I think Hollow Janeway. I said Hollow Janeway is the second most likely to die. And you said like that's nuts, fathery. That's like their space mom on the ship. Like she's their mentor. They can't get rid of her. And I was like, well, they have another Janeway, so I don't know if they need two of them.
Yeah, maybe they'll go onto the Dauntless and go looking for Chakotay. So it's sort of kind of similar. All of our predictions sort of came through.
Yeah,
except for the time travel.
More interesting ways. Yeah.
I mean, there's time that audio that message time traveled.
Yeah. They will be crossing some time barriers.
Oh, and we got a concrete date. We're like, that's 52 years in the future. So that was the thing I was curious about. Like, how does all this fit in the timeline?
Oh yeah, I remember that because it's 52 years when she's like, my father's out there, and I was like, wait, how? Like, it can't be that far in the future. How old was her dad?
Right. Yeah, I guess we don't know anything about how her race ages either. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be like pretty old and crippled after he like came back in time and searched for the ship for all those years. So I would think he's like at least like 70 or 80 or something.
Well, I'm curious. Oh no, we're not talking about predictions yet. Sorry, never
mind. You can give one prediction if everyone wants to give like one prediction for season 2.
Well, I don't know if this is a prediction, more of like it would be an interesting thing that we saw that Prometheus class ship that we don't really know what exactly it was.
What if that's like Gwen goes to Solemn on that? I was thinking that too.
Yes, that's kind of like what if she's actually the incident that causes them to
if it's and then Janeway even had a thing about like the temporal paradoxes. She's like, that gives me a headache, the temporal mechanic paradoxes. So that would even be like a callback if like she gets annoyed by it here.
Convinced is that like it's going to be like a closed loop thing.
Yeah. I think that's very likely.
Yeah.
Which will make it really suck when hologram Janeway is like, yeah, I have to go back in time and crash this ship so that you can find me, and we go on like all those adventures, even though like I know I'm gonna die, I still have to go back and do that for all of you. And then it would like close the loop.
So we kind of talked about that one. There's one I saw someone predict that I'm not even positive I actually believe this will happen. I just want it. That if they're going to be doing like Doll having to deal with like augment like prejudices, like, hey, that's a good time to bring Bashir back.
Yeah, I would be down. Oh, the Hageman brothers have promised there will be more familiar faces.
Yeah, I saw that, and
the Doctor.
I want the Doctor, especially with Janeway making herself into a hologram.
You could be like, see, how do you like it?
Yeah,
exactly. I want to hear that conversation.
Yeah, remember when I had to beg you for permission to turn myself on and off? Like,
she got to do it all by herself, all the time. Great.
I did have a question, like a thing, and I was like, I got past it because I was like, I don't know, it's a good emotional moment. And I was like, they didn't have like a holo emitter sitting around for her.
Yeah, well, the mobile emitter was rare 28th century technology, but
the
29th. But the La Sirena from the Confederation timeline that was in Picard season 2 seemed to have the ability to replicate those mobile emitters, because we saw one on hologram Elnor. But that was also a ship from an alternate timeline. So I think with the explanation that we agreed to is that the Confederation had captured 29th century technology and repurposed it because they're evil. But, Dave, did you have any thoughts on season 2 before we go into the Gorn eggs and then make me sing this god awful song?
I don't actually. I have not projected forward to really like kind of like entertain a lot of thoughts on what's coming up. So yeah, I don't have any big predictions. Sorry, nothing to put money on.
That's fine because we got some Gorn eggs to hatch before I start singing. But I'm just gonna run through these real fast. The Gorn eggs, if you don't know, those are the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections that we wanted to point out. Starting off with the isolinear chip kind of becomes a big plot point in this episode, but just thought that was a cool use of a existing part of the universe. Isolinear technology first put on screen in the Naked Now in season 1 of The Next Generation. Jankum Pog refers to himself as a miracle worker, which we know was something that Montgomery Scott liked to call himself. In fact, it was important to him that he maintained his reputation as a miracle worker. Just want to remind everyone, Jankum actually knew about Scotty because he was in the holodeck program that Dow was running. So
he might have been might have picked that up from him.
Yeah,
Aaron, I saw you had your own isolinear chip down there.
Yes, I've got a couple of them.
Nice.
Love that.
Made them.
Yeah. Sentient holograms stored on those.
Yes. I've got like a stack over there.
One's Moriarty, one's Janeway.
Yeah, the reality is the way I would store those, they'd all be like spilled around, covered with dust, tape on some of them, noting what they are. Half of them I'd be like, let me load it up. I'm not sure what this one is.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh shit, that hologram's evil.
Oops. Yeah, exactly right.
Which is kind of the plot.
Why do I still have this?
Which is kind of the plot of Ship in a Bottle. It's vertically going, oops, I opened the evil one. Could have warned me about that.
Well, the wormhole that is created by Holo Janeway and the destruction of the protostar, it's actually described as a interspatial flexure. Which we've talked about this before, how sometimes when they bring back something from a legacy episode of Star Trek, you can tell like the writers were watching that episode because then shortly after that they'll drop something else. Well, this also came from the Voyager episode Counterpoint, like we were talking about last week when Janeway saved those refugees. In that episode, those refugees, they escape through an interspatial flexure. That's the only other time that term is used in all of Star Trek. So, clearly the writers watched that episode. It was on their minds. This happens a lot in modern Star Trek. I should start, trying to create a list of all the examples of this because I think
that would be interesting.
I think it's funny when it happens.
Yeah.
But we got to see the Prodigy version of the future San Francisco of Starfleet of the Golden Gate Bridge. There's some ships flying around. They kind of look like the La Sirena from certain angles. Like I don't know if they were like cargo ships, some type of civilian ship or something buzzing around. But the really cool Easter egg, if you look at the shuttlecrafts that rescue the kids from the bay, they're labeled with the registry number of their parent ship, NCC 74656-A. That is the Voyager registry number. So there has got to be a Voyager A coming in season 2. That is the bigger ship Janeway is talking about. There's going to be a new Voyager. We know in Discovery in the 32nd century, they're up to Voyager J. So this is where we get Voyager A.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yay.
Unless they did that to fill out the space, but it's not a plot line that they follow through on. But I bet it might be.
They wouldn't have used that registry number.
It seems unlikely for the show starring Janeway.
Yeah, I think that was an intentional.
I will be excited to see Voyager return.
Yeah, I not sure what it's gonna look like. I kind of am hoping that they. Aaron Walke has said like they do have access to the Star Trek Online library of ships now. I believe he's gone on record and said that.
Vesta class maybe. Or
I like the Pathfinder class. It kind of looks like a sovereign version of the Intrepid class of like the original Voyager. Okay. So
I think like thematically makes sense for the next Voyager to be a Pathfinder ship, considering they called it the Pathfinder project to like find Voyager.
Yeah, like the name makes sense. This could be like the Pathfinder to like find Chakotay.
Voyager J is, well, it's Intrepid class on screen, and then some people have called it a Janeway class or a Voyager class.
Yeah, I think
something like.
There's a contradiction between Star Trek Online and then what was actually in canon in the show, I believe.
So in canon, it's an Intrepid. So, but that doesn't mean it has to be Intrepid all the way through because we've seen other ships do that, like the Constitution class.
Yeah, there could be like different
32nd century.
There's like 2 different Excelsior classes now after Picard season. So yeah, it's weird. It's but yeah, let's just say there's a lot of options for Voyager A. I'm sure we'll see it soon. I bet that's in the first trailer for Prodigy season. Maybe not the first trailer, but it's like kind of a short teaser trailer. But An early trailer for Prodigy season 2 will reveal the Voyager A. If we don't get a glimpse of it before then, so something to look forward to in the new year. This was a really cool Easter egg. The Starfleet officer who gives some advice to Rock Talk about choosing a career, a science field, talks to her about xenobiology, is actually credited in the. I said last week, always look at like the credits and the end credits, but this character is credited as Dr. Aaron McDonald, playing Dr. Aaron McDonald. So the science consultant for the current Star Trek shows, Dr. Aaron McDonald, really cool. I've kind of seen her at conventions and stuff, and on the cruise. I've never really talked to her, but I have people that I'm friends with people that are friends with her, and they all say like she's really cool.
That's awesome.
That's really fun.
I mean, we were talking about the improvised Star Trek before. It's like she came to our shows. I mean, before she was a consultant and everything. It's like, so we've been friends for like, it's just weird. Like, oh, there's somebody I know, like 3D
playing themselves.
Like, and I die. Playing themselves.
They're like a 24th century Starfleet version of themselves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what is a cooler honor than that, man?
Yeah, they even animate her.
I can't wait to see her in that. Yeah, she's probably going to have that costume at some convention soon.
Dr. Aaron, I really hope that the next time I see you at a Star Trek event, that you're wearing the Starfleet uniform. Someone makes it for you, and that you.
If anyone ever put me in a Star Trek, I would immediately cosplay that.
Yeah. And in that
100%.
same scene of Rock Talk in that science lab, there's an Enterprisian from earlier in the season from All the World's a Stage. There's an Enterprisian sitting in there.
Oh wow!
Also, I guess doing some Starfleet training. So I guess the kids probably told Starfleet about hey, there's this whole planet that y'all made first contact with a century ago that y'all probably should go check on them, make sure they don't get radiation poisoning. But I like seeing one of them there. That was cool. Made me happy for them.
And they get to have their uniform. They get to keep the Enterprisian uniform that they're wearing. Well, I guess they don't. I think Starfleet.
Yeah, I think they'll probably have to ditch that and wear a uniform that's uniform at some point. But this is modern Star Trek, so we have
it's another variant.
Variety.
Who knows?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. They'll make a 24th century version of that updated into with the offset little things on the waist. No.
But yeah, so that brings us to the end of our Star Trek Prodigy Season 1 coverage. It was a lot of fun. And there's also, I guess, the last show of streamed / recorded in 2022. So it's going to be 2023 soon. I have a bottle of Canar that I got for Christmas from Santa that is really cool, from the Star Trek wines collection. It's the screen accurate bottle from Deep Space Nine. So I'm gonna bust that open tomorrow night to ring in the new year. But
I've got 2020 Romulan whiskey. I'm gonna do the same thing.
Oh yeah, your Romulan whiskey.
I'll mix some vodka with some blue Gatorade. I can pretend it's something.
But yeah, this was the biggest year for Tex-Trek. Just for us, we had 52 podcasts. We never took a week off to talk about Babylon 5, like we did some in 2021. It was a new Tex-Trek podcast every week. There were 51 total new episodes of Star Trek released in 2022 from all 5 shows that are currently in production. We saw the premiere of a new show with Strange New Worlds. There was the most hours of Star Trek ever released in a single calendar year since 1998, when there's DS9, Voyager, and Star Trek Insurrection all came out that year. But we covered a season of DS9. Dave and I did season 5 back in the summer when there was a dry spell between Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks, so we did that. What else did we do this year? We had several guests. We had a Berman era Trek actor. We had a Berman era Trek writer. We had a Prodigy writer producer Aaron Waltke all came and appeared on the show. We launched our Patreon. We launched our Discord server. So thank you to people who have joined those communities. We surpassed 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We hit our 200th podcast episode, and so yeah, it's been a hell of a year. We also had more Aaron and Rachel on here, so thank both of y'all.
That's been great.
For being on board.
Hi.
Yeah, so a lot of
thank you for letting the Californian show up on your show about Texas.
all the rest of us are in Austin, Texas. Well, sometimes we let the Floridian in with Starfleet boys. So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We have an East Coast dude and a West Coast dude.
The rest of us are just stuck here in the center of the country, going like, "What's going on by the ocean?"
Yeah.
We sometimes have to bring in people from the Beta Quadrant and Delta Quadrant and stuff.
It must be weird to live somewhere with a moderate climate where it's not like, hey, yesterday it was 17 degrees, tomorrow it's going to be 79 degrees. Like it's a bit.
I lived in Minnesota and I experienced that, so yeah.
Oh my god,
that's crazy.
This is when people are like, you just put your winter clothes away, like you put your summer clothes away in the winter. I was like, no, I can't.
I'm gonna need those later this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of big shit happened for us in 2022. So you could say it's been a long road. I guess I have to sing the song about that now.
Right, just in case people don't know, that was the condition of us hitting 1,000. If we could get 1,000 people before 2023, 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Well, I feel like I gotta drink to do this. So let me crack this Michelob Ultra open.
People in the chat room or the chat is like, no.
Well, you can. The cool thing is y'all can mute this, but I can't mute myself from myself. So here we go. Let me pull up some music. It's probably gonna be all out of sync.
Love that you're not popping open the Canar for this. Not worth it.
Yeah. It's been a long road getting from there to here. It's been a long time, but my time is finally near, and I will see my dream come alive at last. I will touch the sky, and they're not gonna hold me down no more. No, they're not gonna change my mind. 'Cause I've got faith of the heart. I'm going where my heart may take me. I've got faith to believe I can do anything. I've got strength of the soul, and no one's gonna bend or break me. I can reach any star. I've got faith. I've got faith. Faith of the heart. Yeah. God damn it. Fuck all of y'all for making me do that. But thank you for the subs. Thank you for the support over the years. If you like that song, I don't know what to tell you. I think that you probably never need to express an opinion about music at any point in your life, and if you try to, someone should punch you in the face until your mouth bleeds for a month. But no, just kidding. But yes, that was well worth it. That was the price I was gladly willing to pay for the subscriptions.
Thank you, Father. You faced your Kobayashi Maru.
So y'all be
the
good.
Unwinnable situation.
We'll see you in 2023, and until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.